Hey, what's going on, YouTube? Storm here with another deck profile for you guys today. This is the first new real life deck profile I've had in a while for you guys. So now we've got Blackwings. Now at regionals, I was gonna pick up a few more Blackwing cards, but I found that I was kind of able to complete the list on my own. I focused the regional last Saturday is mostly focused on picking up Ignite cards. I'm hoping to have a deck profile for you guys fairly soon, but no guarantees because the card I spent quite a bit of money, so I'm having to save a bit before the Ignite. So it might be a little bit before the Ignite deck gets profiled. Anyway, guys, that out of the way. Another thing I want to talk about this Blackwing deck real quick. First off, the deck is getting some new support in Dimensions of Chaos. I think it's getting one new level 7 synchro monster named Rakiri. Rakiri's effect is basically you once per turn, you can destroy cards on your opponent's side of the field up to the number of Blackwing card monsters except itself, and destroy them. Basically, sort of like a Ritual Beast Steeds, if you will. It really fits with this deck's playstyle because of how you get a Synchro you can just spam the board so quickly. I still think that the level 5 monster is not bad, but I feel that it doesn't really make, unless we get the big level 9 synchro that you see Crow use in the duel with Gogenzaka. I feel that it's probably not going to be the most optimal card. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get another thing I wanted to. Another thing I want to mention real quick. The extra deck is still a bit incomplete. I'm having to borrow some cards from the other deck, but we'll get to that. So let's get, without all that away, let's get started. So first off, 2 copies of Blackwing Blizzard, the Far North. Now, this is a tuner monster that when it's normal summons, special summons a level 4 or lower Blackwing monster in face-up defense position. It does not negate the effect. So it's sort of like a Wolf Bark for the deck, and it's also a tuner monster, so it gets you instantly to your synchro plays. 2 copies of Blackwing Gale the Whirlwind. Even though this card did come to 3 quite a while back, I still don't find the need for free. I never seem to need the third one. Typically you won't, so 2 is kind of the optimal number with Gales, at least in my opinion. 3 copies of Blackwing Shura the Blue Flame. I'm thinking about in future builds maybe bumping this down to 2 because Shura does cards like this that have to send monsters to the graveyard don't resolve again when they run over pendulum monsters. So I feel like Shura is probably not. I feel like on future builds this might be bumped down to 2, but for now Shura's in here at 3. Then 2 copies of Blackwing Bora the Spear. Now that Chris exists, I don't feel that Bora is really necessary at 3 anymore. I've seen some players tell me, oh, you still need to run 3, and I find 2 to be the most optimal for now, because I think Chris is the better card. Bora's still not bad though. 2 copies of Blackwing Pinaki the Waxing Moon. This is one of the new support cards the deck got in Premium Gold 2. So its basic effect is that first off, you can't use it to synchro summon anything but Blackwing synchro monsters. Not that you really care. So the other effect is when it during the end phase, if it's in the graveyard, because it was sent there this turn, you can add 1 Blackwing monster from your deck to your hand. So it's sort of like a Scarm for the deck, which is really nice. Gives you a little bit more consistency, which is always good. And we got 1 copy of Blackwing Zephyros Elite. Most of the time this card is, I run this card in a lot of my, pretty much all my Blackwing lists. It's also pretty decent in a lot of Perform Age or Clownblade decks, but I run just the one. And then 3 copies of Blackwing Chris the Crack of Dawn. This guy is much like a lot of the Blackwing launch. You can special summon when you control a card other than him. So its effect is that once per turn it cannot be destroyed by spell or trap effects, and that is a lot better than it sounds on paper. So when this thing hits the board, it can't be destroyed by torrential, it can't be bottomless, it can't be ringed. And the really nice thing about it is that say you normal summon Blizzard, drop this out, and you have Lance in hand, your opponent tries to torrential in the middle of your play, Chris won't die, you can chain Lance to protect your Blizzard and then continue going into your synchro play, which is really nice. Chris is like a really good addition to the deck's arsenal. Then 3 copies of Blackwing Collude the Moon Shadow. So this is obligatory. So when you're during the damage step, when Blackwing monster attacks or is attacked, you can drop this from hand. It gains 1400. The key thing to remember about this card that's different from Honest or Bujinji Crane and similar cards like that is that not only can you drop this at any time when your monster attacks, you can also drop this card. You can drop multiples, and even when you're not attacking a monster, which is a lot different than Honest or other substitute Kalut. So it's really nice. And one copy of Blackwing Gladys, the Midnight Sun. I really like this card because when you open with really like a card at the hand, like with this and with Panaki and Whirlwind and no other monsters, you can activate Whirlwind normal and then search this and then still be able to go into your synchro play. So it's nice always like having a few of the low attack on Blackwing monsters to be searchable. One copy of Blackwing Orochi the Squall. I really like this card because I can search it via Whirlwind with when I go into my Blizzard play. And what I love about this card is you can special summon this when you have Nothung out and then synchro summon into Hopjo and just loop Nothung back. So it's really nice in that aspect. So I feel like Orochi would be in any Blackwing list I play. And then last two monsters, 2 copies of Maxi. I feel like Maxi with Norden coming out in the tins, I feel like it's more relevant now. Maxi's really in its best right now. That might change with Gradles and Magispectors coming out. I feel like Maxi is probably staple in the current format we are in. Then now it's all the monsters. It's pretty decently monster heavy, as you guys could see. And then for the spells, 1 copy of Regeki. I feel like Regeki is kind of like pretty much staple at this point. I feel like it doesn't need a ton of explanation. 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon. Even though in a deck like Blackwings you run Icarus attack, I'd still rather have the MST than not. I feel like 2 is kind of, with Icarus, I feel like 2 is kind of the optimal number. And 2 copies of Forbidden Lance. The reason I run Lance in this deck is because this deck is pretty reliant on its normal summons resolving and going through. Granted, that can interfere with your Whirlwind. Most of the time, you're going to use this on something like Blizzard. That's going to get, and then you don't really care if your Blizzard's attack gets reduced because you can still search Orochi, which is what you were going to search anyways. So I feel like Lance is very optimal in Blackwing, any Blackwing list I would play. Last 3 spells, of course, the obligatory 3 copies of Black Whirlwind. This card not being searchable is probably one of the only really problems with Blackwing's consistency. That's why a lot of Blackwing players run Duality, but I've never really liked Duality in Blackwings because the deck special summons a bit too much for my taste. But in terms of Whirlwind, I feel like it's always going to be a 3 of, because it's your consistency, it's your searcher, so that's why it's there. That's all the spells for the traps. 3 copies of Icarus attack. I would run 3 Icarus in just about any Winged Beast deck. I feel like 3 Icarus, I run them in any. It's kind of just the optimal number, at least in my opinion. Plus, with Pendulums running around, Icarus is only going to get better. Then 2 copies of Black Sonic. If you don't know what this card does, when your opponent's monster declares an attack on a Blackwing monster you control, banish all face-up attack positions monsters your opponent controls. And like Delta Crow Anti-Reverse, you can activate this card from your hand when you control exactly 3 Blackwing monsters and no other monsters. So, the theory behind this card is I want to have some way to just banish Pendulum straight up and not have to deal with them. So that's why the Sonics are in here. And then 2 Mirror Forces to deal with, I feel like Mirror Force is still pretty decent right now, and just to deal with annoying monsters and just get them all off the field. Then we're getting the 1-ofs, 1 Solemn Warning, because we want a fair bit of back row, and Denko, we don't want Denko ruining our day. Copy of Bottomless Trap Hole. Bottomless is probably one of the best, staples right now, especially all the Pendulum support incoming. And then 1 copy of Vanity's Emptiness, because it's a staple, figure as long as it's at 1. They're run at 1. So, now we're getting the extra deck. Now, the extra deck is not totally complete yet. It's still kind of a work in progress, but I'll kind of go over where it is. So, first, 2 copies of Blackwing Nothung the Starlight. This is another one of the new support cards we got in Premium Gold too. So first effect is that if this card is special summon, you can burn your opponent for 800 and then reduce 1 attack position 1 monster your opponent controls by 800 attack and defense. So the fact that effect does not target, so this card can easily get over Leo. Not that Leo is really a problem for Blackwings, because they can just get over. They can just punch over it with Kalut, but the fact that it doesn't target is really relevant for other decks, because this is a generic. So it also gives you an additional normal summoner set, kind of similar to Constellar Pollux, so you can abuse your Whirlwind searches with this card. It's really nice. And 1 copy of Blackwing Obsidian Hopjo. This is the last of the support cards from Premium Gold 2. This card has 2 different effects. They're both pretty good. One of the first one is that it can special summon 1 Blackwing level 5 or higher Wing Beast monster from your graveyard. And the other effect is that when your opponent tries to declare an attack or target a Blackwing monster with a card effect, it can redirect it. So, say you have this guy and this guy out and your opponent tries to attack this, well, you can just redirect it to no thung and bring it back next turn. So both effects are really nice. I'm gonna definitely bump this to 2 in future builds. And then 1 copy of Blackwing Armor Master. Armor Master is still pretty decent. I mean, being only able to just not be destroyed by battle isn't as good as it used to be. I still feel, 1-to-1 obligatory, Armor Master. And then 1 copy of Black Rose Dragon. I would probably run this. This card is being borrowed from one of my other decks, but I still feel that I'd probably run this in here because Black Rose is Black Rose. Then this is 1 card I'll definitely be running in this deck. Is 1 copy of Clearwing Synchro Dragon. So the theory behind this card is it can keep my. I really like it because it's good for the Shaddoll matchup, and it just keeps my stuff from getting from high level effects from activating. It's just a genuinely good card. Then I'm borrowing this card as well from the deck. 1 copy of Yazi, Evil Liangzing. This will probably be a Moonlight Rose or a second Hawkjoe in the future, but Yazi's still a pretty decent card. Now we're getting to the XYZs. 1 copy of Abyss Dweller. Dweller's still a pretty good card, although I might change this to a Key Beetle in the future or a Force Strix if we ever get it. So I still feel Dweller's a pretty decent card. 1 copy of Evil Swarm Exciton Knight. I feel like this card is still one of the better ranked forwards in the game, like just being behind, just nuking the board, clearing it off, and then making a comeback. And then 2 Ice Beast Xerophine. Xerophine is, if you don't know what Xerophine does, it's probably an obscure card. You may have never read it, but you can once per turn you can detach 1 XYZ material from this card. Negate all face-up cards. It's a key, so it negates up spells and traps. That includes cards in the Pendulum Zone. It gains 300 attack for each face-up card currently on the field. So this card is amazing. It's a lot of Pendulum decks, particularly if you're talking about something like Cleese, where they have their Scout and their Monolith. Being able to negate those for an entire turn till your next standby phase is really powerful. And with Pendulums being relevant, I feel like Xerophine just gets that much better. Then 2 copies of Castel, the Skyblaster Musketeer. Obviously, this card's really good because Icarus exists, and the fact that you can make this spin a Shaddoll fusion back, and if they try to use a fusion spell from their hand, like another Shaddoll fusion from deck, you can chain Icarus, and they'll have to use materials from your hand, which is really nice. And then 1 copy of Art 101. I feel like 101 is still a really good card. I feel like it's pretty optimal for a lot of situations. Sometimes you don't want to always spin a card back into your deck, only for your opponent to add it back again. So that's why it's in here. And lastly, 1 copy of Dark Rebellion XYZ Dragon for dealing with big threats and just getting over a lot of things. So anyway, guys, I hope all of you guys enjoyed the deck profile today. I really appreciate it when you guys watch my videos. Tune in again on next week on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday for more Yu-Gi-Oh content. And if you like what you saw from this video, please subscribe. Warstorm signing out.